So we're here with Mike Korn and dentistry to real estate now, back and forth. Tanner Osborne, Joe Swingle. This is the Beyond the Bluprint podcast. Business, how it ties into real estate. Mike Korn in the dentist industry, but now getting into real estate a little more heavily. But you've already dabbled in both, right? Okay, cool. So tell us a little about your background. Why did you even get into Sub 2 in the first place?
Yeah, so I've been a dentist for about 13 years, owned 2 practices up in Seattle, and, you're reading business books, you're reading all kinds of personal development stuff, and one of them was based on how most business owners, I guess depending on the business, have to be entrepreneur, manager, and technician all at the same time. And those are 3 completely different personalities that are like constantly fighting in your own head. Yeah. 3 very different bits of motivation. So I guess I realized that as a dentist, I can't do this forever for a paycheck and have a chance at retirement. So it was really about retirement and developing passive income, and then you get hurt, you get sick, all the production for the business stops, and so I guess it's sort of risk management.
Yep, totally. You already own property, right? And how did you get into those properties, and where are they at?
Yeah, and dental was a big part of it. So, owned a practice for about 5 years, and everybody thinks you're making good income, you have a good job, a lot of education, but we just could not figure out how to buy a home. Couldn't figure out how to save enough for that down payment, conventional financing. And so when I bought my second practice, I bought the second one at the same time, and all of a sudden, on paper, I had twice the income and a lot more assets, a lot more cash sitting around. And so all of a sudden, right at that moment, we could go buy a house. So bought that house, which my wife had been bugging me about for years, trying to get out of the whole dealing with landlord nonsense.
Yep.
Fast forward to, I guess this is public information at this point, but are you familiar with the PPP loan?
Yes.
Yep. So at the time, I had 2 practices, a bunch of employees, decent amount of revenue generating income, and so I just got huge PPP loans.
Yeah.
And then I got a second one, and then talking to my CPA, she's like, "Yeah, based on all your numbers, you qualify. Those are going to be forgiven. So you just have this huge chunk of change." Dang. And so that's when my wife and I started talking about. I'd been reading real estate books like crazy. She's got 0 interest in it, but at that point, we had a down payment. And so we started looking at Arizona. We were living in Seattle. All our family's in Arizona. So we're like, we're going to buy something anywhere. Let's buy something we might want to move into someday.
Right.
In Arizona, where the rest of the family is.
Yes. Okay, so I want to just get a grasp on a brief timeline. So you went from, we want to buy a house. You bought some dentistries. It paid for your ability to buy some houses. And actually, hold on. You bought some dentistries, you ran them, you got PPP loans, multiple, to buy houses with, and then that was what was able to fuel your enterprise so far. Is that all right?
Yeah, when it comes to real estate, yeah.
Yes,
we would not be able to buy the house that we're now living in without that PPP loan.
Yeah, because that's a little bit kind of creative. That's a little bit creative financing right there.
A little bit.
He took out a bunch of debt. This is all positive stuff for Sub 2 people. Everybody's like, debt. We want more debt. So you took out a bunch of debt against your businesses that you didn't have to repay, and then you bought real estate with it. Mm-hmm. That's pretty creative in itself.
Yeah. A lot of people are scared of debt right now. A lot of people are not just scared, but like.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is, when I finally graduated dental school, I was 30 years old and had not only 0 income and 0 experience, but now I owe $500,000 to USC for dental school. Like, that's a scary position a lot of people don't want to be in.
And that's debt that if you didn't have the rentals or anything else, that's debt that you'd have to pay back.
Yeah, it's before I had any homes, any assets, just a piece of paper that said I was a dentist.
Yeah.
I didn't even really know how to be a dentist at that point. All you know how to
Crazy.
do is keep people from getting hurt in your chair, to be safe.
Great.
I see.
Why a dentist? What made you go down that path?
Yeah, good question. So my original path was chemistry, and I went to NAU.
Nice.
I ended up with a master's in chemistry, thinking I'm hot stuff. Had these big companies, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, all these companies flying me out for interviews, putting me up, taking me to steakhouse dinners and stuff.
Yeah.
Big ego booster, and all around, interview after interview after interview, and every one of them turned me down.
Really?
I kept getting rejection letter after rejection letter, and at some point, like, last interview was done, last letter came. What am I going to do at this point? So I took a job in a different aspect of chemistry. Super exciting the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it was just horribly monotonous. And I'm just like, I can get through it. But this is not a career. What's next?
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the kids I worked with, his dad was a dentist. Talked about him all the time. And I thought maybe I could try to go to medical school. Maybe I could do this or that. But I want to get to that doctorate level.
Yeah.
And his dad was a badass. So I met him, hung out with him, and then started shadowing him every week, which you have to do to apply to dental school.
You have to get hours with a dentist to even be able to go to dental school.
Yep.
And what was the total cost of just the dental school?
Well, so it was different then, and it was obscene then, but it's much worse now.
Really? Oh my
So
God.
and USC's private. It's old. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's expensive. When I went to USC, I think with all the extra, you got to buy a ton of supplies.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but they issue you just $7,000 worth of supplies for the year. And you're
Right
just
off the bat.
yeah, every year or every semester.
Every year.
It's crazy. So I think it was probably somewhere around 80 to 100K a year
Wow.
for dental school, all things included, and that's living pretty cheap rent, not going to nice restaurants or anything, just in school full time.
Wow, okay.
How many years did you do?
4 years,
4 years.
normal for general dentistry.
Yeah. So, I'm a dropout. Are you a dropout?
I wish.
You wish you were a dropout? I am a dropout. And then you stuck it out for 4 years. So, do you think it was worth it? The debt, the dentistry?
good question.
I'll take everything into account. Was it worth the amount of debt you got into to get that piece of paper?
It's all about perspective, right? It's all about the lens that you're looking through.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, you own 11 properties.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. You don't even know, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You are
Little
20
bit.
years younger than I am. And I feel like you are light years beyond me in the real estate world, in the buy and hold world, in all the things that I now am dying to get into.
Right.
So from that lens, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm way behind, right?
Sure.
Then again, I've got a license and permits that most people don't have, most people can't get, and there's freedom in that. There's
Oh, yeah.
job opportunities. Everybody has teeth, and if they don't, we can make some dentures for them, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's gonna need a dentist.
Yeah.
So there's job stability in that.
Yeah.
Every country in the world needs a dentist somehow.
You don't
Yeah.
think AI will somehow take over the dentist industry?
Funny you mention that. So the most recent thing that I discovered that is crazy like that. So there are, when you place implants, there are guided systems that will help you get into exactly the right position with your drill to put it in exactly the right position, right? That's not new. But what's pretty new, I don't even know how old it is you end up being the guide. The robot is placing the implant. But that was the guide, and you're still the surgeon.
Really?
But it not long ago, it just flipped where if you're using the latest and greatest stuff,
Yeah.
you are the guide and it is doing the surgery.
So how is that going to impact you with what you do? Do you think it even will right now? Are we 10 years away from it impacting you? Or
Are you planning on staying in the dentist industry still?
Well, it kind of the question comes, I think, from something you mentioned a few minutes ago of, are you trying to get out of your W-2, or are you trying to be able to do the W-2 or the work you want when you want to do it?
Yeah.
And there's aspects of dentistry that I absolutely love, including surgery. So much fun, very lucrative. Patients desperately need this treatment. They're so appreciative of it.
Yeah.
And so there's just so much reward in that. So yeah, I want to be able to do that, but not have to, just to make sure my kids have
Right.
a home and clothes on their back and good schools.
Yeah, that makes sense a lot. So you want to get into real estate, but now after having a short conversation with you before we even started rolling, I want to get into dentistry now. And maybe you can tell everybody who's watching this why exactly, with the whole loans and some of the laws in different states. I found that extremely interesting, and we'll even talk about maybe how you could actually take that and turn it into something that you can leverage inside of the sub-2 community. Because I think there is a way for you to do that. But we got to feel it out first. We got to learn a little more.
Yeah, so I think what you're mentioning is something we talked about before the cameras came on.
Yeah.
Where in the state of Washington, it is not legal for anybody other than a dentist to own a dental practice, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very unusual for somebody else to own the real estate, but the dentist owns the practice. Typically, it's the dentist owns both, or like in my practice in Seattle, my predecessor, who I bought the practice from, owned the real estate. Mm-hmm. I bought the practice from him, and so it was the first time he'd ever been a landlord, and he was my landlord. I didn't have a choice. But it's a big deal, specifically for Washington, that you have to be a dentist to own the practice business. But it's not the case everywhere. Arizona is different. Anybody can own a dental practice, which is good for some, but in my industry, it's a bad thing. There's a lot of lobbying going on to prevent that.
I see.
Because in Washington, there's a lot of people that want that, especially big influential companies, venture capital, private equity.
Yep.
A lot of business people see it as a good move to go buy a dental practice. Or there's also something to do. It's called a DSO, Dental Service Organization. So that's where you own several practices in one entity, one group, right? So let's say DSO goes and starts or buys 7 different practices. Mm-hmm. Each practice is worth, say, $1 million. But when you have 7 of them all working together, it's worth some multiple. 3, 4, 5x multiple of that total number. So 7 practices are all doing $1 million, $7 million practice, right?
Yeah, it's like 1
times
1
4. Yeah. All of a sudden, that group of practices is worth $28 million.
Jeez. All right.
And so the DSO world and the corporate world owning practices can be extremely profitable. That's why all these companies in Arizona.
I see. And you mentioned something about the loans with buying a dentist practice. 0 down, no verification of any sort other than with the actual business's production.
Right. Like, I don't remember them ever checking my credit. Maybe they did, but it wasn't a big part of the equation. I was a baby credit, like I don't think I even bought a car at that point, with debt, like you pay, $4,000 for an old used Honda or whatever, but to be registered with building credit, right?
Right.
So yeah, to buy a practice in Washington, a bank will fund 100% of the loan. They'll give you working capital loan on top of it. They'll give you equipment loans on top of it if you need to buy new equipment and change it out. Mm-hmm.
And they'll do that solely based on the business's profitability, their overhead. They won't even look at you as the individual buying the business.
I don't think so. Not really. Because I was not.
From what you remember, you don't see any
and
reason why they would recruit.
I'd never been a business owner.
Yeah.
I got a license, but a ton of other dentists out there with license.
Yeah.
It was really driven. My understanding was it was really driven on the cash flow of the business. Mm-hmm. Could it support, my income, the overhead of the practice, and there's cash flow left over to justify the note.
So anyone can go up. In Arizona, it could literally be anyone, but in Seattle, it had to be someone who actually had the licenses. They could walk up to a dentist business. If they underwrote it appropriately and the numbers penciled, the bank would give them 100% of the loan for equipment, the purchase, even the real estate.
And some of the crazy, we'll get to the real estate in a minute. But
Okay.
yeah, some of the crazy thing on top of that is some of those practices are going for 110% purchase price of the value of it, and the bank will still cover it because it's about cash flow.
Amazing. So as long as it pencils, they'll buy it for you essentially, and you'll be the owner, and you can run that business however you please. And then there's no other credentials you need to get into this.
And if you look at like the history of banking and them giving loans to dentists, what's the likelihood of default? Like they look at their statistics, and there's sometimes businesses get shut down, especially during COVID. But the success rate, even dipshits,
Right,
who go in
is,
and is remarkably high.
Incredible. Yeah. So
and they don't teach us business in dental school.
Of course not.
So you're now a business owner.
Yeah.
The bank is giving you 100%, and all you know is teeth. You got to figure out the business part from there.
So could you own an entity, even in a state like Seattle, could you own an entity with someone who was not licensed and buy a dentistry as a business, like as an LLC, as long as you're licensed? Can you do that?
No. The dentist itself has to buy the practice. I worked with
interesting.
2 guys, partners. The brilliant guy was my consultant for a number of years. Absolutely brilliant, but he could never own his partner's practice or percentage of it. Mm-hmm. I was trying to give him equity in my practice just to get his advice and kind of lock him in to keep working with me. And he's like, state won't allow it. So we had to figure out a different...
Is that only in Washington, or is it like I'm just trying to understand it, right? In Arizona, you're saying like I could go technically buy a dentistry. I don't need a license, but in Washington I would.
Right, and it's state specific. So I'm sure there's a number of states where you have to be a dentist.
Yeah.
And there's really just 2 types. The state that says you got to be a dentist, or the state that doesn't.
Would they still give, say I went to the bank and want to do that, would they still give me a loan if I didn't have the degree that you hold?
I think you have to really show, your own credibility and your own business plan, and you have to justify it somehow. But I know hygienists in Arizona who own a practice. I know a lady who was a front office, office manager type receptionist she was doing that role for maybe 7 years. She went and started her own practice. So when you start up, there's no business there at all, right? There's just an idea.
Yeah.
And then she built out, took a lease on space, built it out. To do that, that's probably at least $600K, $800K. Just to get it up and running.
Jeez.
And she got the loan, did it.
Okay.
Zero down too. She didn't have to.
I didn't get the details. But I don't know. I haven't bought a practice here yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know the ins and outs of it. But
I think you should, especially with
I think you should.
finance. If you want to stay in it.
Well, I was even saying if it's that easy to get a loan on a dentistry business, 0 down, you can get it up and running and profitable, maybe even if you know what you're doing like you do, you've owned multiple, even increased profitability. You can go sell that business creatively to someone else and leave the loan in place and make a lot of money for somebody else who wants to own a business
that's interesting.
that is cash flowing.
And you might be able to do that in Seattle. I don't know. You're talking about like a sub 2 type of arrangement.
Yeah, you would be the one buying, almost like a wrap. You would buy the home and it would actually be your loan. In this case, it's a dentistry business. You would buy it. This is where my mind went to immediately, knowing the real estate side of things. If you bought a dentistry business and you knew what you were doing and you got 0 down, you're in it for nothing. You could, if you analyze the right business and you can even increase profitability on that and the cash flows, however, X amount a month, you can go turn around and be like, I have this product essentially. You can take that to sub 2, the community, you can take that anywhere. And you can say, I have this product, it's pumping out. I've got a manager in place, it's pumping out $5K a month. And you can go sell that business with the loan in place to somebody else for a good chunk of change, because there's a lot of people who would pay a lot of money to get that $5K a month. And whereas you can do this multiple times because you already know the ins and outs of the dentistry business.
Now you're talking about in Washington where you have to be a dentist to own it?
You could do either way. It depends on, that might be something to explore a little more.
I guess the buyer pool
is
would be
smaller.
So much smaller.
In Seattle, right? Yeah. So maybe the play.
One buyer though. That's something I learned from
That's
Pace.
true.
No matter what you're selling, you only need one buyer.
Yeah, true. Because that's the thing is maybe the play would be go to states that don't require that. You having experience and the credibility already, purchasing those and selling and setting them up for someone who doesn't.
They call that like a loan sponsor. Is that right? Where you like I go get the loan, but then it will immediately sell it to somebody who couldn't qualify.
Yeah, I think the loan sponsor might be a little bit different. I haven't done one of those before. I've never gotten a loan sponsor to help me with a purchase before. But what you'd be doing is just pure and simple a creative finance move. Purchase a home, have debt on it, go not pay that debt off, and go sell the asset and receive income up front, maybe even income monthly. Because you're selling a business that cash flows, you can take a portion of that cash flow by wrapping the property to somebody else. So in real estate terms, I'd buy a property for $200K. It has an 180K loan. I put $20K down. The payment is $1,500, but I can go sell it at a higher interest rate to someone else. Maybe the interest rate's 3%. I go sell it for 6%, and I can make some money down. Maybe some money up front. Someone brings $40K down. I sell it for $220 instead of $200, and then I knock up the interest rate, couple points, 3 points, and make some cash flow. It sounds like you might be able to do the same thing with the dentistry business by buying it. You're not in it for any money in this case, and then wrapping it to someone else at a higher interest rate so that you're receiving not just money up front, which you didn't have to put in because it's a zero down loan, and maybe taking some cash flow off.
Really interesting, Joe. Never thought about that.
Well, that's why we're here, because you know all about dentistry and owning a dental business, and we know a little bit about real estate. You combine the two, and now you've got a new business model you can pump out.
You know, I feel like the next level is in the brilliant move. One of my buddies is doing it not far from here. You buy the condo or the property, you buy the dental practice, or you start a dental practice. Yeah. He started his. And so he's got one big loan. He builds it from zero up. And after maybe 2-3 years, he's got this killer dental practice. He sells the practice, keeps the real estate. And then the new dentist is paying your commercial loan.
Right.
And, you know, you can sit on that for a long time.
Because they'll give you, the bank will literally give you a loan as well to purchase the property. And you would own the property, the practice. You could get a loan even for the materials if you wanted to. And then
I've never done both, but or I didn't have the opportunity to do both in either practices that I owned.
Yeah.
But you know, talk with a lot of dental specific bankers.
Wow.
And the general consensus was, you know, we sort out how the loan is drawn up, the term, and make it work.
Man, that's crazy. Why do the banks do that? Why is it so favorable? Do you even know? Does anyone know why it's so favorable to get a dentistry loan?
It's just statistics. You know, how many businesses go bunk or get closed within a year after starting, or 5 years after starting. Like what's the statistic on all businesses? It's incredibly high, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What number comes to mind?
I thought it was like 90%.
I thought it was high too.
Yeah.
85, 90%.
Yeah. I've heard someone say this recently. I thought it was up there.
So apparently in the banking world, the likelihood of a dentist who bought a practice not being able to pay that loan is almost zero. It might be 3%.
Incredible.
Historically.
Wow. So people buying businesses, it's not a bad idea to hop on the dentist train.
It's a good move, and that's why private equity is doing it. That's why so many people, especially in Arizona, because you don't have to be a dentist to own them.
Right.
They come in, they snatch it up, buy, and then there's that multiple I was telling you about.
Yes.
Where they could sell that group as a multiple and cash out big time.
And those, you think those, you would know better than me, so when they package up like 7 dentistries together, they'll sell that to like a fund that is using money from other people and giving them a return based on their purchase? Sure, is it kind of like that? Like
Arizona will do that. Yeah, like
okay.
like in other states like Washington,
right.
You know, it's more the dentist comes in and wants to buy those 7 because they can.
Right.
Or it's a dentist owned DSO, dental service organization. So, you know, maybe 3 dentists come together, they go in and set up this DSO. Now they can legally buy dental offices or groups of dental offices and kind of trade in that world.
Wow. I'm being a dentist now. That's my next goal.
Going back to like the AI thing with it, because I think it's coming for every industry. Do you, besides like that machine you were saying, do you see anything for like the future in the dentistry with AI that could potentially take over people's jobs or just completely eliminate them in general, or do you think there's always going to be some human aspect there still?
Yeah, good question. And I don't know enough about AI. One of the kids I went to dental school is big into AI, and I've been following his posts a little bit.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't know much about it. What I do know is the struggles of finding and retaining employees, managing those employees, trying to get better quality work or more consistent work, better communication. It's incredibly difficult, right? And so a lot of offices will outsource everything but like direct patient care. So you have to have a dentist, you have to have an assistant, and really you have to have a hygienist to be doing that regular care. But you can outsource front office stuff, you can outsource calls going out, calls going in, almost everything else you can outsource, and you already are. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, at some point, the front office for every dental practice was AI driven.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's something to think about. Like, it's going to come for every industry. It already is. Even real estate.
Yeah, even real estate, for sure. Yeah. I guess the philosophical question is, does that really mean people are losing jobs, or does it mean that there's more opportunity for people to create more jobs? That's what I think the debate is.
I think there's a
right?
mix of both, where there's like a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because it can easily be replaced by AI, but also what I see AI is doing is creating even more jobs.
I think it has to do with mindset, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
A little bit.
it's about the abundance mindset versus what's the other one? What's the opposite of abundance?
Scarcity.
Scarcity. Yeah.
Scarcity mindset, abundance mindset, and being able to pivot, open to change, embrace and change.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
100%.
Interesting. Now, does technology take away freedom from people who do not opt into the technological system because now they're forced to adapt or kind of die off?
Or work for somebody who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like how do we deal with that situation? And that might be why getting into real estate is so smart for you. You've got this ability to identify. You've now owned 2 practices, and you have this ability to identify a solid dental practice. You know the funding side of it. You merge that with real estate, and it doesn't matter what happens with AI because you can set yourself up by merging the 2 businesses, real estate and dentistry. It might not even really matter to you at a certain point. So, and I think that's why a lot of people are trying to, as Tanner says, escape the matrix here, because if you can get out of it, then,
I'll put the shades on now for the rest of the pod.
Yeah, there you go. So if you can get out of it, if you can escape the matrix, as in just escaping the regular cycle, whether AI comes or not is almost irrelevant for you. So I don't know. I think that's kind of how I think.
I'll tell you what the dream is playing the McDonald's game,
Yeah.
Like McDonald's is not a restaurant business. It's not a food business. It's a real estate business.
They own the
Touché.
corners that they're all on. They're like the most sought after piece of land, like real estate there is.
Ray Kroc.
So can we do the whole dentistry thing?
Reverse
McDonald's
engineer
way.
what they did.
We've got the
that's
tools
your
right
dentistry.
here. We've got the tools right here.
You can be the leader in AI in the dentistry industry right now.
Yeah.
Drive-through dentistry. They don't even have to get out of
Drive-through dentistry.
You just drive in.
Yeah.
I've heard of people like buying a sailboat. One of the staterooms, they put a dental chair in there. And then when they want to work, they pull into a port, put up a sign. Somebody comes into work,
No way.
they get some supply money and re-up on ice and fishing tackle and then go out sailing again. How cool would that be?
Insane.
Sure. And in fact, there are mobile clinics all over now. We had one at USC. It was like an RV that they turned into it.
Really?
But I saw one just the other day. It was like one of those Sprinter vans. And I don't know where they go or what their business model is, but there's a dental chair in there. And here's room.
Jeez. So what are your plans for real estate with everything that you joined Sub 2? You said back in January. Well, how did you even discover that?
Yeah, so also kind of a long story, but I'll try and keep it brief. So conventional financing on the first rental home that I bought, you know, we were able to get approved for a second home loan, you know, like a vacation.
Yeah.
But it just sucked huge amounts of capital out from us, and then it was appraised low, so we had to come up with the rest. So it was just huge outlay for our family to just do this one property. And moved to Arizona. I'm trying to get more into real estate. How do I do it?
Yeah.
And talking to bankers and everything, started looking at DSCR loans. You know, I bought the house from Seattle, and so I hired a property manager right away. Backing up a little bit chronologically, property manager was spectacular, and he's a real estate broker. He and his daughter are, and so that was my in, right?
Was this home here in Phoenix or back there?
So we lived in Seattle. We bought the home in Arizona, sight unseen, just went for it.
Nice.
But then just dumped all of our expendable cash in.
Really?
Hired the property manager, developed that relationship. He was amazing. So if you need a property manager, give me a
Oh yeah, definitely. Out here?
Yeah.
That's all out here?
Were you doing like
Not bad.
Airbnb with it or?
Nope, long-term rental.
Nice.
Yep. And we bought it 2 years ago. Had one renter come in. As soon as that lease was up, we had decided to move. So we moved in. But coming back to it, I got that drive and that thirst to just get more into real estate, buy more properties, long-term buy and hold, cash flow, etc. And so working with him, working with his banker, exploring the DSCR route, every place we looked at wouldn't cash flow, even with, I think they required 25% down at the time, maybe 30 for the properties we were looking at.
The banks did?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And every deal, wherever we would go, we just couldn't make it cash flow, and it would still require that huge down payment, you know?
Yeah.
And so I kind of got priced out of Phoenix, started looking in Casa Grande and just further out. And I don't remember what the trigger was, but I started talking to agents, real estate brokers in the Midwest. You know, I was born in Indiana, but you hear about all sorts of areas around the Midwest that will cash flow from day one.
Yeah.
Renter's higher, the rent is higher, the mortgage is lower,
Yeah.
and you can make it work. So I started exploring that. So I think it was actually a real estate broker in Cincinnati who, we're going back. We had a couple of calls and we're just texting back and forth. And he's like, "Would you be open to sub-2 or seller finance?" And I'm like,
You had a realtor ask you if you'd be open? Damn, usually it's the other way around.
Like, where are those guys?
"Yeah." And
I'm one of those guys.
I'm like, I think seller finance could work, but I don't know much about it. I have no idea what sub-2 is. And
That's crazy, man.
And so he's like, "Yeah, check out this podcast, Sunday Service." You know.
Oh.
And so the very first Sunday service I listened to was his last Sunday service before he turned it into a different podcast, right?
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
wow, dude, that's
Which
crazy.
was, that was what, December?
Yeah, it wasn't too long
What,
ago.
not long.
Yeah, it was like this year, right?
Yeah,
Or
you
last year?
shifted it to
Barely?
like a creative
Maybe June.
podcast or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Get Creative?
Yeah, Get Creative. It used to be the Sunday service or something.
Yep.
So, Pace Morby and his marketing genius and his verbiage and his
Yeah,
confidence and knowledge and everything else just sucked me in.
Yeah.
of course.
And then, there's just Google machine and YouTube and learning more about it.
Yeah.
And scheduled a call just to talk about it, see what would be involved. And so,
Yeah.
Sold.
Same here. Pretty much the same. And then what? You just started, kind of got deep into the rabbit hole of just all the possibilities. Kind of got lost in that.
yeah, I got lost in that a little bit. Like I'm a chemist by trade, right? That was how I got through college. And so I'm super analytical, super, just get hyper focused on one thing,
Yeah.
And so you end up with some of that analysis paralysis. Not sure when or how to take action.
Yeah.
When it comes to the world of dentistry, there are aspects of it where I'm the man, right? Like I know
Yeah.
everything about that world. But there are other aspects where I'm not super confident. I don't like talking about those other areas because I'm not super confident, right?
Yeah.
Getting into real estate, it's hard to start making moves if you don't have that knowledge, you don't have that background, you don't have that
Yeah.
confidence.
100%. So what have you what did you start doing once you joined Sub 2? What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And
Yeah, good question.
where are you going now?
Mostly I've just spent money.
Yeah.
I got to figure out how to generate some income. But I've got ADHD, and so shiny object syndrome is very real and tough to fight, tough to battle. So, in all honesty, I've learned a lot. I've made, some great connections, had a lot of good conversations. I've got a decent network, of people, and I haven't really done anything.
Nice.
So, too many avenues.
Yeah.
What I really need is focus on one and get after it.
Do you think it's more, because we've all, honestly, who can say they haven't struggled with this exact same thing?
Yeah.
No matter how good you are, you can struggle with it. I bet Pace would tell you he struggles with it.
I think you have to, just like anything. When you went into the dentistry industry, it's probably the same thing. You were kind of uncomfortable at first at school. And
do you think it's more fear or a little bit of confusion? Like, I can start here or here or here or here. Like, I get attached to the shiny object thing too. I've lost a lot of money doing that as well. Even when fear wasn't involved, sometimes you can just get distracted on a tangent and a couple months later look back and be like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
Because the fear thing, I think, is easily solved by partnering with somebody. That's how I overcame a lot of my fears, was partnering with someone. And now I reach out constantly. I'm constantly reaching out to people who I'm like, I derive confidence from this person. They actually give me more confidence to jump into this thing. So I don't know, depending on what it is, I think there's a solution for both.
Solution. I mean, dentists are problem solvers. Like somebody comes in with a complaint, with a problem, not even knowing they have a problem. We take an X-ray, you got a problem. We're trying to figure out how to solve it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a well-suited career for me, a well-suited opportunity for generating passive income. But honestly, I still don't know how to get into it.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
So you're not really wanting to like wholesale call sellers or do any of that. You're mainly wanting.
Well, so I had a couple of great calls. Houston Beckett and I think it's his partner Ryan something. I'll remember his name.
I know Houston. I've heard of Houston. I don't know who else it would have
He's
been.
got a killer stash, man.
Yeah,
I can't grow a proper stash. Like,
I can't
it's just
either.
creepy.
Yeah.
I got the van with the blacked out windows out back.
Yeah.
One of those guys. I don't know if it was Houston or his partner. Helped me understand that I don't want to be a wholesaler, and that my pathway to buy and hold. But do you really want to commit 6 months to a year and a lot of time and effort and some money at doing that? You're going to be a wholesaler. I mean, you can take some other paths along the way.
Yeah.
I don't really have the drive to be a wholesaler. Same idea on like gator lending. It's shiny. It looks awesome.
I fell for it right away before
right?
I joined Sub 2 last June, and then started trying every single thing, and I saw Gator come out, and I'm like, yeah, I signed up, and I'm like, I'm gonna do Gator now. I'm like, had to take a minute like 3 months ago, and like, I just need to slow down and just figure out like, out of everything I've tried, what really resonates, and it's more like what we're doing now here with this networking,
Right.
more of the dispo side.
Yeah.
I think it does kind of just take like just trying everything. Don't get like too shiny object where you got to buy this stuff, because that's what I did too. Bought this software, did this, and then you waste all that time. And I don't really look at it as wasting time, maybe wasting a little bit of money, but
Yeah. My opinion on it is a little extreme. I think that the only way is to pick one thing and then you do not stop until it creates income. You just you never stop until it creates income. The reason why I say that is because when I started, it was 6 months of door knocking and getting nothing. You know what I mean? And hundreds of doors. And I could see the improvement in myself, but no results for so long. And then when the check came in 6 months, I was like, this was definitely worth it. But I could have stopped at any point before then. I almost did. And the guy I was working with was like, I will give you an advance when one of your deals closes. And so he gave me an advance that kept me going, because I was in the red at that point, having to get new tires on my car. Like, I'm not working any other job. This was it. Going to school full time. And that advance kept me in the game for a little longer, where I eventually got that deal. And then it was just, then you were just crushing. You were just getting deals all the time because you finally got in the rhythm. So personally, I think you got to really think a little bit about what you're going to get into. And then when you do, you don't stop till you get income out of it. And then from there, you can kind of build on that because you're doing it with one person. Now you can bring someone else in, manufacture it again. Yeah. And then when it's really pumping out and you can step aside, maybe you chase that shiny object and hit Gator and start a lending side of the business. Yeah. So I'm still in the infancy of our business too, but we're manufacturing some leads that are going to hopefully close. One of them is going to close. And when we replicate that, then we can kind of automate ourselves out and get, busy on the other side of things.
Yeah, it's really good advice, and I've heard the same kind of thing, at least 30 days, at least 90 days. I guess, my situation is a little different because I've got a lot of expenses. Yeah. I've got a great paying W-2 that's time consuming, and I can come up with all kinds of excuses, but you try to avoid that. But just trying to find a pathway in or to focus on one thing, kind of in your spare time until you can generate enough that'll cover those expenses.
Right. Yeah. How much time do you have to devote weekly, roughly?
Well, right now I got a lot of time because I'm looking for a job.
Okay.
And that's why I was able to come down and have some freedom today.
Right.
And it just kind of depends on how the job training works out.
Okay. Cool.
For the last few months, I was dentisting 3 days a week, and so had a decent amount of time Mondays and Fridays, a little bit of time on the weekends, nights, things like that I could commit. And just it kind of depends on how the next gig shakes out. That'll pay my expenses, cover the bills, so I can get more into real estate.
Right. Okay. And you want to be on the investing side. You want to go and purchase property, hold it.
The whole reason I got in here was my hold.
Yeah.
And trying to avoid conventional financing. My credit score is 800 or higher. I've got tax returns that say I make an obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
A lot of that, full disclosure, is when you take out that loan for the dental practice, paying that loan back doesn't count for income. So like your adjusted gross on your tax return looks like it's way higher, whereas a huge chunk of that went to the bank.
Yes, I see.
Does that loan have to tie to your personal credit at all?
Oh yeah, you're a personal guarantor.
Really?
Well, yeah, because you can't buy it in a business in
Seattle.
You
mean like registered on like Experian, etc.?
Well, like how you were saying earlier, how you can buy a practice where they'll fund the whole thing. Does that have to, like, you have to show your personal credit and have that writing to back it up as well, or is it?
I don't think so. I think it's. my LLC bought both businesses.
Nice.
And it's basically a business line of credit that did it. So I'm the guarantor of the LLC. Me personally is the guarantor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Well,
but that doesn't report to your credit report, right? You won't benefit from paying the loan.
So.
Okay, interesting. All right, that's cool. That's very cool, actually. Interesting. So even if you defaulted, would it come back on you?
Yeah, that's basically what I was getting at.
Or would it come back on your business? Or I don't know how that would work. I feel like they'd have some sort of retaliation, I guess, if you want to word it that way. But I don't know.
I've known dentists who have gone bankrupt,
Yep.
And I think they had a real hard time, like, buying a practice again.
I see. So it definitely,
I think it wrecks your personal credit if the business fails. But then again, what's the likelihood of it failing? There's so many different avenues,
right.
So many different ways to make the business work.
Especially if you stay ahead of the curve, get that AI going.
Yeah.
Get that drive-through dentistry going.
Yeah, get creative.
I was trying to figure out how to work on two people at once, line the chairs up like this. When
That's hilarious.
You become ambidextrous in the training.
So there could be a real opportunity with the whole turning over dentistry businesses, though, for other people even, and making money in between, potentially. It sounds like that might be an avenue that you could actually, not saying you would do this right now, but that might be something you can have a breakthrough in.
I mean, I would be really excited about the McDonald's approach
Mm-hmm.
and just picking up that real estate and having the business, guarantee the loan on the real estate and
Yeah,
sell the business.
that is good.
Sell
So
the business, keep the real estate.
could you buy any piece of property that, like a warehouse, for example, and convert it into a dentist's office? Does it have to be specific zoning, or what are the requirements
Question.
there?
So a lot of the startup cost for a dental practice is the medical dental plumbing, the gases,
I see. Yep.
the certifications for biohazard waste and gases, I think is the big stuff.
Okay.
So a lot of times you'll have like a medical dental building that sets it all up that way to be in the beginning. But then again, I mean, a lot of really successful dental practices as startups are in strip malls and right next to a grocery store. You get a ton of drive-by traffic, and that's just a strip mall. That's empty. So I think you can build out a dental practice anywhere. Not entirely sure how the permitting works.
Sure.
But it is going to be like a specific medical dental permitting.
You know what you should target if you want to make it about real estate? All the old Pizza Hut buildings that are closing?
I've been checking those.
Those are on some pretty good real estate.
Prime real estate right there.
Right there, go target them.
Well, Tanner was trying to buy a new warehouse when we first met, and I was helping him negotiate something creative with the agent who was open and the seller who was kind of open too,
Yeah.
for having us take over the loan he had on it, potentially, and then bringing him some money and going from there. You could easily do the same thing with creative and then grow a dental business within that.
I'm so glad you brought it up because get your mind thinking, right? Like most of the time when you buy a dental practice, you buy it from a retiring dentist, or like in my case, I was leaving town, movers were coming, the deadline is rapidly approaching, and I had to sell this practice fast, right? So most of the time when you get a dental practice loan, it's a 10-year note, and if it's a retired dentist, they were in that space for 30 plus years. They paid off that loan a long time ago. Seller financing could easily work because a lot of older retired dentists,
Set them up for retirement.
from a long career, they're loaded. Like they've had good income. They've had their 401k for 20, 30 years. Seller finance deal there could then kind of
That might even be more attractive to them than selling it outright.
roll into their trust to
Yeah.
bring it toward their kids and their extended family.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then, what are they going to do with that money? They're loaded, right? I mean, I remember Pace.
They're going to travel.
Yeah,
They're gonna
exactly.
play.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all they're doing.
They can sell for more by doing it creative and turn their practice into an annuity, and then ride the waves of every
Yeah.
continent that they can go to on their
I'm really
on their
curious about the
cruise.
sub 2 though thing. Like
Yeah.
what if that practice I just sold in Seattle? What if I kept the loan in place?
and you subtude it to someone or wrapped it. You could do that ad infinitum. As many loans as you could get, you could do that continually.
I wonder if I could. That's
And then your management, you're not managing it anymore, but you're.
I mean, that was why I got out of ownership and management. I don't want to manage dental practice. Right?
Well, now you can get out. If you were in that same spot, you could get out and wrap it and retain some of the cash flow as well and do it again. As long as you're able to keep getting those loans, which it sounds like you can get multiple because you had to at the same time, right?
Yep.
So you could get multiple and turn that over as many times as you're able to.
All you have to do is show the cash flow. And if you're doing multiple, you got to show the cash flow from your existing practice and how it's functioning and paying your bills and there's money left over.
Okay.
Plus the second one, how it's is cash flowing now and it will continue to cash flow now.
So that might be a conversation with an attorney on how you'd be able to leave it in place, retain some cash flow from like a wrap, but then also convey to the lender that this business is still running and I want to get another loan.
I mean, plus, I had equity in it, right? I've been paying down that 10-year note for 5 years.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing on that warehouse, getting back to like buying stuff creative and stuff too, the seller's biggest objection, I think, was that since it was a business loan, SBA loan, that he was worried that the lender, under terms supposedly, I just don't think maybe he trusted it, but he said anyway, on SBA loans, they will pop in and check to make sure whoever whoever's debt that's in is operating in that space.
Right.
But
I've heard a lot of people say that about USDA loans too, but I've taken those sub 2 and I've sold them sub 2. So I don't know.
I think he was kind of bluffing because he was in there for like 3 or 5 years, and I was like, well, how many times did they stop paying you? Like, none.
Well, isn't SBA, isn't that a government-driven?
I think so.
Well,
Like,
so
are
is
there,
FHA.
are there local versions of it? I mean, do you ever see an FHA agent stop by, right? Or like an
No.
SBA agent?
No, I've
I
never.
think it's just,
I think it. Yeah, I
Could be
mean,
just fear.
I think it's the same with the due on sale because it's in every conventional loan too.
he's on to something there with the last
Yeah.
thing he said.
What'd you say? What'd he say?
Fear.
Yeah, he said, I think it's just fear, and I think
It's
that's
fear,
what
yeah.
it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe in some terms, whatever, but they can't pay somebody to go, hey, here's a list of all of the places we have loans. I want you to just go drive around and make sure they're there. Like, they don't.
Not if they're getting paid.
I mean, even in my expertise, like I've bought and sold multiple dental practices, and I have no idea in that state where I was working if you could substitute a loan like that or wrap it, or I think you probably can't. And I think the
I
likelihood
think, yeah, anything's literally
of that
possible.
VP of dental banking actually calling me up and stopping by is absolutely zero. There's no chance, Like,
Again, not if they're getting paid. Also,
Yeah.
even if they aren't getting paid, they probably won't stop by. They'll probably issue their normal
They're
proceedings.
busy doing
but
business. They're busy writing new loans.
There is
finding more people.
there is no. I think this is a really important point. There is no due on sale clause department with any lender, because it's not some. It's a precaution. I've lent money to homeowners because
People
I've
that are
wrapped stuff.
watching that are new. What's the due on sale
Right.
clause?
So in a subject to purchase where you are buying a home but leaving the loan in place and taking over their payments, you're not assuming the loan's staying in the seller's name, but the deed is transferring over into your name, and now you're going to make payments to that seller's mortgage. There is a clause in every single deed of trust and note document that lenders issue for homes that says the lender, if the title transfers without paying the loan off, that they can actually call that note due, and it's called the due on sale clause. The note is due in full when the property sells.
which is terrifying, right? It's in there
Terrifying, but
to discourage
yes,
something.
yeah. But the thing is about this, there is no due on sale clause department with any lender. You could call any lender and say, "Where's your due on sale clause department?" and they won't have one, because really what it is more a precautionary measure for the bank that if they needed to, they could. But I'm a lender because I've wrapped homes to properties, and guess what I have in my deed of trust also, and my note documents, is a due on sale clause, because you want to be able to have that recourse if you needed it.
Is that basically the deed in lieu?
No, that's like, there's literally a due on sale clause when you originate your note paperwork
So
with
when
the
you
buyer.
go wrap it, you create your own due on sale clause. Because
Yes,
you're the,
yes, because if they sold it to somebody
It's funny, I didn't know that.
and they left my loan in place with them, it's not that I would care necessarily. I might care, I might not care, but if they sold it to someone like that and then they defaulted, I wouldn't have to go through normal foreclosure proceedings, 60, 90, 120 days in some states. I could just immediately issue a 30-day foreclosure. So I think, personally, me being a lender on properties, that's where I see the value in the due on sale. Not that I'm going to be upset if the deed is transferred to someone else.
You just don't want
Depending
to
on
get
the circumstances.
hosed and then stuck for 6 months where you can't evict.
Exactly. I'm going to go deed it to my brother, and then he doesn't pay. And now I'm on a 120-day foreclosure timeline. I could be on a 30-day instead and do it legally and without getting in trouble. So that's why, of all the dozens of properties we bought sub 2, I've had one call the note due. We handled it pretty easily. There's a lot that goes into that story. Maybe we'll make a video about it or something. But
Another episode.
yeah, exactly. But on that one, easily combated. At first I was like, whoa, I got the letter, and I was like, oh shoot, it's happening. This horrible nightmare is happening. And then all I had to do is deed it back to the seller and have an executory contract put in place.
where the title
Immediately
just stays in their
finish.
name then, until you pay.
And I have a contract for deed or that agreement for sale document recorded, and
Is that like the
back
same
on track.
as like buying on like a land contract or whatever, basically?
Yep. Pretty much. Yep. So and Pace talks about this too. That's the technical way to combat the due on sale.
When you do that and go and like revert back, and you're because they saw what you did there, right?
Yes.
And then you're just like, no, we're deeding it back.
They literally were just like, okay, and then we deeded it back.
No, you still have to pay. Like they can't do.
Well, so with that paperwork, you completely eliminated that risk for them, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's all they care about.
Yep. So the reason
making
why
those payments, and taking away the risk.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why you want to do this is getting in the weeds a tiny bit. Some people might ask, well, why don't you always just do a contract for deed or an agreement for sale and never actually take the deed or the title?
Taxes or what?
Well, you still get depreciation, and you can still do the taxes and take the interest. You can still do all that with a contract for deed.
Really?
I know this because I've gone through the IRS code because I've sold properties on a land contract, and you don't get to keep the depreciation on those if you sell it on a land contract either. So that's why I know about it, because last time I did my taxes, I don't get to depreciate the properties I sold on a land contract, because then you only have to sign once. So if you get the deed transferred in your name, you got the power of attorney, you've got all legal authority to do whatever you want with that property, including refinance, talk to the bank, change stuff, do whatever. And if you do an agreement for sale, then you're still going to have to go back eventually with the seller down the road and get that deed signed. And I think that that's worse for both parties, because the seller probably doesn't want to be contacted ever again. And you, the buyer, don't want to get in a situation where you're having to even if you do your paperwork right and you're in the right legally, you don't want to actually get into a conflict later if you don't have to. So it's good, but it's not great for both parties. It makes more sense to transfer the deed and have whatever necessary precautions you put in place so that the seller's safe. But that's kind of my opinion about why you wouldn't want to do agreement for sale for every single property.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, man. I've heard a lot of those terms so far, but didn't fully understand it. So.
Well, I'm buying one right now on an agreement for sale in Casa Grande, and the reason why we're doing that is because it has down payment assistance on the home, and we have to wait for that to fall off before we can actually transfer the deed, or else that will probably cause
like a
problem.
Plan or 10 or
It's only 2.
Really?
Only 2.
I mean, how many, do you know if they had 5 initially and they used up 3 or 2?
Oh, I don't know exactly. I just know the maturity date of that first one, which is only 2 years from now. So not a big deal, you know. I don't mind that.
The one in Casa Grande, you said?
That's the one on French.
The one on French?
Yep.
So you bought that. You had to do that with that one?
We're in the process of finalizing the documents for that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then 2 years, you'll just buy it sub 2, transfer the deed then?
Yep. I might just hang on to a deed. I might just get a deed signed and hang on to it. I don't know.
What would
just
you
to
do
have
if
it.
you did it, but you bought it on a land contract,
And then in 2 years they didn't want to.
Well, no, bought it sub 2 and then got the due on sale clause, and then would you just go back to a land contract again?
Pretty much, yeah. That's what you have to do. It's a little annoying, but that's only if it gets called, which it never does. Like I said, one time for me, and it was kind of a weird situation because the seller was just in pre-foreclosure, and the bank was, and it's a small bank, and they were really on. She was like minutes away from the foreclosure, you know. So they were already. That loan was under extreme scrutiny already.
Yeah. Bank is hovering.
They're already
sweating it.
Yeah. So most of the ones I've done, not quite like that. And I've even done some. I bought one in Buckeye, and we cut it really close to the auction, and we transferred the deed, and it was under scrutiny, and they still didn't call it. So most of the time, you're never going to run into it. Yeah.
Crazy. Are you down if people want to reach out and network with you? How can they get a hold of you? You got social media?
Oh man, I'm old school. Like I'm brand new to Facebook. Like I don't have a.
Give them your fax number.
Yeah.
Give them your page.
It's gotta be snail mail.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out, network, whatever?
Yeah, we'll post the Calendly link that I set up, and I'm in sub 2 and the Gator community, so you can reach out that way.
Sweet.
We just met this guy today, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Well, thank you guys so much for setting this up and hanging out, inviting me in here. This is awesome.
We'll do it again.
We'll have to do another episode pretty soon, and then we'll have different stories then too, different things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Switch seats. I'd love to grill one of you guys.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Grill,
Yeah.
Thought about getting into grills.
Too, that was good. Yeah.
Actually, a buddy of mine made Marshawn Lynch's grill. That was pretty cool.
No way,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
That's a story.
I think it was like maybe 60 grand for that thing because it was straight up gold and diamonds, and
So that's an elective dentistry,
Yeah,
right?
very much
An
so.
elective surgery. That's
Right.
an elective dentistry type deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Whole other market to corner.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Cool.
with a K.
Yeah, yeah.